How'd you get in? Not the answer. Yeah. But all right, I call this meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Here.
Mr. Lunder.
Here.
Mrs. Thompson. Here. Mrs. Moore. Here. Mr. Shaboo.
Here.
Mr. Morris.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here. Approval of minutes from the meeting of February 8th, 2022. Any corrections or additions to the minutes? Motion to approve.
So made.
Motion made by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mr. Bittner. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder.
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Shaboo.
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Correspondence. Clerk, is there any correspondence tonight?
I have no correspondence tonight.
Does anybody on council have correspondence tonight? Hearing none, we will move on to administrative and department head reports. Mayor and Safety Director, Mr. Eva, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson, members of council, the public here this evening. I was copied on a memo sent by Chief Chasko. It went to Mrs. Thompson, who's the ordinance committee chair. Just real quick, he mentions on July 1st of 2022, there'll be a new law in Ohio making it legal to shoot off fireworks on certain holidays. The new law allows consumer grade fireworks. Includes more than 20 days in the year: New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, Cinco de Mayo, Juneteenth, Memorial Day, Labor Day weekends, July 3rd, 4th, and 5th, as well as 3-day weekends bracketing July 4th. The new law law gives local communities the option to opt out. And what Chief Fiasco says, I want to share my professional opinion with the committee as it relates to this subject. It is my opinion that we as a municipality should opt out of this new law and should not make any changes to our code of ordinance dealing with fireworks. The reason I mention this is I also agree with Chief Fiasco. We should opt out and leave things the way they are in the city. Some of the other points that he makes in here, he did some research, and the research states that an estimated 15,600 people required emergency room treatment in the U.S. hospitals due to accidents involving fireworks last year, which was up from about 10,000 people in 2019. And I would think the Works Committee will take a look at that maybe next Monday. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Administrative Director, Mrs. Bartone, good evening.
Good evening. Part of my annual report to council includes the fact that our credit card that is issued to the city does not earn any points. Part of the requirement to do that. So, as an official rule, it does not earn any points. Second, the CRA that is on the agenda tonight, every one of you received it with the agenda this week. In the reviews, if you take a look at it, it is for a master bathroom inside of the house. It is my opinion that it provides no additional tax value to that home. I don't see a need to approve this, nor is there any real value that would have been added by redoing something that already existed. We shared on social media that there will be a taxpayer assistance night on Friday, March 4th. Member from CCA will be here in the community room between the hours of 3 and 7 to assist anyone on a first come first served basis with their local. It's out there for everyone. I'll skip ahead to the service department report since I'm already on deck. Focusing on salting and snow removal and maintenance of all of the things that are snow related for winter time. This week and last week, we, aside from the snow, we took a couple of days, patched the potholes that we could get to while the weather gave us an opportunity that wasn't in the rain. And we've been monitoring the ditches and drains to make sure that they're not getting overflowed with all of it.
Thank you. Law Director, Mr. Lyons, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. President. My understanding, the government just past week signed into law that we can once again have Zoom meetings and they'll count as the presence of the occasion or somebody can't attend the committee and a person can't attend the committee. They can appear by Zoom. That's only goes to June 30th.
Great, thank you. Questions of the administration department heads?
I have to agree with Mrs. Bartone on these CRA. I usually, when I get these, I usually skim through them to see what kind of value, what kind of items were purchased. And a couple things kind of stuck out to me personally. The completion date of 12/10, but then on 12/13 and 12/14, items were still purchased. And if you're looking at the items, all of them have the item number. So I was looking them up. I found 2 ceiling vents listed on here. I found multiple different sizes of fittings that, I mean, they range from 1.5, 3/4, and then valves that were 1/4 inch, which the 1.5 and the 3/4 won't hook up to a 1/4 inch turn valve. And then all the copper piping that they bought. I mean, I just don't understand how this would make an impact. And then they had insulation, but there was no plywood replaced. There was no walls replaced. So how does this all play into it?
Was there a question there?
No, I just wanted just to bring that up in case someone didn't have time
Okay.
to review it.
Questions for department heads? Anybody have any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to board, committee, and commission reports. Board of Zoning Appeals.
Board of Zoning Appeals met on February 21st, 2022. Meeting started at 6 p.m. Purpose of the meeting was for the property at 5448 Woodside. They were asking for a variance. In attendance was Ray Galick, Mike Sweeney, Brandon Towns, Andrea Hathaway, secretary, myself, Rob Johnson, Kevin Bittner, and Paul Roski. Mr. Roski was representing the family of the property at 5448 Woodside, asking for a variance of the property, which is going to be demoed and a new home built. He asked for a 10-foot variance on the side yard. Service Director Mrs. Bartone submitted an email stating ordinance 1252-08. So letter F allowed BZA board to unlimited variances in cases where we will not be contrary to the public interest. After discussion of the variance and talking to Mr. Rowski, there was a motion and it was passed and seconded and was passed unanimously. I asked Mr. Rowski at the time of framing on the building, and he told me demo will start next month and construction will be started around May, weather permitting. Meeting ended at 6:14.
For any other boards and commissions that met? I think so. All right. Open to the public. If anybody would like to speak, please come to the lectern and state your name and address for the record. Hearing none. Move on to legislation. Resolution number 2022-R-03. If you could please read it by its title.
Resolution number 2022-R-03. A resolution confirming the employment of Renee L. Schaefer as Assistant Clerk of Council and declaring an emergency.
Now, I put this on the agenda because while it's really council's job to hire this person and not my job to hire this person, so I wanted to have all of your feedback as our Assistant Clerk of Council. And I would like us to consider suspending the rules tonight so that we can swear her in as soon as possible if it is approved. Anybody have any questions or comments about this before or any motions?
I'll move that we suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion has been made to suspend the rules by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mrs. Thompson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris.
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Is there a motion for approval?
So made.
Second.
Made by Mr. Morris, seconded by Mrs. Thompson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner.
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Resolution passes. All right, resolution number 2022-R-09. If you please read it by its title.
Resolution number 2022-R-09. A resolution authorizing the administrative director to sell surplus city property by way of internet auction and declaring an emergency.
Are there any questions about this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Ms. Bartone, do you have a website or an internet auction site you're planning on using to dispose of city property?
Typically, we used to use eBay.
Yeah.
And all we got were people that didn't pay. So we switched over to a government,
GovDeals.net?
I don't think it's Gov Deals. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Could you email that to council, please?
Yeah, it's the one, we've been using it now for a couple of years, the same.
It is Gov Deals. It's in the, it's on here.
Well, it's just an option.
An option, right?
Yeah,
Could you email council and let us know where the site is? Thank you.
yeah, we typically will post something that's when we advertise something.
Any other questions on this ordinance? Any motions on this ordinance?
I'll make a motion to suspend because this is a way to bring revenue back into the city.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion is made by Mrs. Moore, seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Shaboo?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Motion
Motion,
for passage.
motion for passage made by Mr.
Seconded.
Lunder, seconded by Mr. Shaboo. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder?
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson?
Aye.
Mrs. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
Aye.
Mr. Johnson?
Aye. Resolution 2022-R-09 is passed. Ordinance number 2022-0-01, second reading. If you read that by itself, please.
Ordinance number 2022-0-01, second reading. An ordinance providing appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Minner on the Lake for the year 2022, repealing any ordinance prior thereto and declaring an emergency.
Are there any questions on this ordinance?
Motion to suspend.
Motion is made by Mrs. Thompson to suspend the rules,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Lunder. Roll call, please. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I support suspending the rules. We've had this out there for a month and there's been no questions or comments on it.
I personally am opposed to suspending the rules because one more reading doesn't hurt.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
No.
Mr. Lunder?
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson?
Aye.
Mrs. Moore?
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
No,
Mr. Johnson?
No, the motion fails. Ordinance number 2022-0-02, second reading. Please read that by itself.
Ordinance number 2022-0-02, second reading. An ordinance providing for the compensation of elected and appointed salaried and hourly employees of the city of Minner on the Lake, repealing any and all other ordinances and parts thereof which may be inconsistent herewith or which may be redundant hereto, and declaring an emergency.
Are there any questions about this ordinance? Are there any motions on this ordinance?
Motion to suspend.
Motion is made by Mrs. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Lunder for suspension of the rules. Is there any discussion? Motion.
same issue. One more reading's not gonna hurt it.
Anybody else? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
No.
Mr. Lunder?
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson?
Aye.
Mrs. Moore? Mr. Shaboo?
Aye.
Mr. Morris?
No,
Mr. Johnson?
No, the motion has failed. Old business, review of council rules. Finish up the council rules. We still-
We have the email from Mr. Lyons.
Yeah.
On that. And then the question.
Yes. So we sorted out the posting question. So Mr. Lyons raised the point that he believed that we could actually use the website as one of the official posting places. Do we want to make that amendment to the council rules to make that, and then we'll make it in the ordinance as well? Yeah, then we'll refer that to the ordinance committee to make that change. Because we like to keep them busy. And then we will make that change in the council rules once it is official in the ordinance. We still have a CRA application in old business. Yes,
What about the 6:30? That's the ordinance too.
That was assigned last meeting,
that will go on the agenda at the next meeting. So,
because we didn't meet yet, that's why. We didn't have it ready for this meeting.
we still have a CRA application in old business. I believe that was referred to the Community Development Committee.
which we're
Yes.
meeting Monday.
They're meeting Monday. New business. Do we have any new business?
I'd like to mention, I know I sent to Mr. Johnson, Mr. Bittner today, the new district for the Lake Shore development. Just trying to get a sense of how council would like to handle that. I know it's a brand new ordinance and things like that, but just the timing of how.
My recommendation is that it goes directly to planning and zoning, and they give us their recommendation and advise us, and then we will go from there.
All right.
Since they will be meeting next anyway.
Okay, put it on planning and so.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Instead of us making a recommendation to them to approve, I think they should be making the recommendation to us.
All right.
So,
Thank you. Yeah.
anybody have any objection to that here? Okay. The other new business, the new CRA application, we don't actually approve them, right, anymore? That has been,
It's still an ordinance, my.
oh, we haven't changed the ordinance
I don't
yet.
think we have changed the ordinance.
Okay, so the new CRA, since we haven't changed the ordinance yet to not have to approve it or disapprove it, is there a motion on that? Say motion to approve or reject it.
So
Motion to reject.
I was gonna say, can we make a motion to approve it and then just vote no on it and then
Yeah.
reject it?
Does
Okay.
it always have to be positive? Can it be a motion to reject it?
Typically, you go back through the minutes, all the motions are made in the affirmative, but there's no requirement. Somebody can make a motion to reject it.
I think it makes more sense to make a motion to reject it
And make
rather
a
than
motion
to
to
approve it, then I'll just vote no.
I stand in my motion to reject it.
All right, so the motion has been made by Mrs. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Lunder. What's the second? To reject the CRA application. Is there any discussion on the rejection?
That's what the- This Barton, you said it, you didn't think that this particular CRA would change taxes at all for these people, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Anybody else?
From what I read on this is it was just a remodel of a current bath. They didn't put it in the house, so it's not something where the auditor's office would think.
And the total included a lot of tools as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes.
You have a second for that?
Yes. So we will now go to the roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Shaboo,
Aye.
Mr. Morris,
Aye,
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. So the CRA application has been rejected.
Mr. President.
Yes.
If I may, this is not really new business, but you know, this past winter with all the snowfall we've had, I don't know if the rest of council is aware, but there have been several residents that actually stood out and offered to help other people that could not clean their driveways so they could get out and get mobile. There was a gentleman on Facebook, he goes by the tag of Double D, that offered to plow the driveways of seniors, disabled people, and veterans in our community. It would be nice to find a way to find out, one, who he is, and commend him for that. I don't know if he did any, but the fact that he offered it through Facebook, and I'm sure he got offers. Plus, I know Mr. Tim Cavalli back there, on one of the couple of big snowstorms, he went around with his snow blower. Anybody that needed cleared out and took care of business. You know, I commend you, Mr. Cavalli. That's very generous. It's great to live in a community where people look out for each other. That's it.
Any other new business? We will bring up that I have referred the CRA ordinance that exists to the Planning and Zoning Commission to review that and provide their feedback on, because now that we've had it for a number of years, we've seen what comes through, to get their feedback on what they think it should be in terms of, should there be any changes to it, modifications at this point, because we are allowed to review it and change it over time. I'd also like to take this opportunity to just thank Joyce here for all the wonderful work that she does. Because, I mean, to be honest, she keeps me on task and keeps everything going here. I think, you know, she doesn't get enough thanks for what she does. So thank you for that. Open to the public to speak. If anyone would like to come to the lectern, please come up, state your name and address for the record. Hearing not. Oh, delayed reaction there.
Good evening, Kathy Donnell, DOH-NAL on Thunderbird. I don't know if you guys have taken a look at some of the YouTube videos that are coming for the different meetings, but they're not audible at all. and the video is bad, and I'm not sure what options we have. But whatever we're paying for is not worth it, guys, because they're not, you can't understand a word what anybody's saying. I appreciate you take a look, see what other options we have.
I don't know how much you've listened. I know, but you can't hear any of us.
Nothing at all,
You can hear them when it's working.
barely. And I was trying to listen to the BCA's, and I don't know if we can move things up.
Right, and that's part of it. We have a new order in for new speakers and for new microphones and new speakers to be able to amplify everyone's voices. So that's just a one-time thing, but that's picking up all the video. The video to me is a little less important. You see people. I don't know that you really want to see their faces.
No,
I personally, the audio, be able to hear them. Yes. So as I've talked to Mr. Morris about a couple of times in his questions, it's on order.
Thanks so much. Yeah, not so bad.
Does anybody else wish to speak?
Yes, Rob, I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, yeah, hi.
Hi, Dorinda Myers, 7734 Sharon Drive. Paul, I do know who Double D is. I can privately message you his name and information. I don't know if he wants to give it out in a public council meeting.
Please do.
Okay, and as well, there are a couple of others also on that same Facebook page that were offering some of their shoveling services for free. I believe Kiefer Roberts was one and Ben Flus. They weren't offering it for free for everybody kind of thing, but like on an as needed, private, kind of basis thing. It's been nice that everybody's been helping each other out this winter.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else online that wishes to speak? Hearing none this time. We will go to announcements and settings and meetings. We have the ordinance committee scheduled for Monday, February 28th at 6 p.m. Community Development Committee, Monday, February 28th at 7 p.m. Other committees.
Parks and Rec, tomorrow night.
Parks and Rec.
6 p.m.
Tomorrow night at 6 p.m.
Planning and Zoning Commission, 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. And the zoning committee will be right after this.
Planning and zoning is 6 p.m. on March 7th, and the zoning committee will be immediately after that. Okay. On March 7th. Anybody else? Meetings.
You fine with it, Desiree?
I'll make it fine. I mean, I didn't look at my calendar. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none. Okay. You all sit here, somebody can make a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mrs. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Morris. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bittner,
Aye.
Mr. Lunder,
Aye.
Mrs. Thompson.
Aye.
Mrs. Moore. Aye. Mr. Shaboo,
Hi.
Mr. Morris,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. You don't get it.